All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott, formerly of Rankin Technical College, and as part of my YouTube channel, JPS, Jeff Teaches Programming, in my YouTube playlist, Jeff Teaches Programming-Python. I have been writing this Python program, which I believe now I've got all the kinks out of it. All right, I've been having some problems getting my cache, computer cache, and history to clear. I went online to try to find out how, but it seems like it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. I'm importing locale here and setting it. This is for currency symbol, and since we're in the US, we're using the $sign. All right. This import lib is supposed to be for clearing the cache. The math, this is for math.isNaN, which is not a number. The OS is for OS, what is it? Let me find it. OS.systemClear. And that is for clearing the screen. And this is for setting a timer. Okay, so that's what those are for. So this is importing the locale, and this technically is setting it for the currency. Okay? All right, I've added constants in here. I'm going to add even a few more, or not more constants. Yeah, maybe I will. We'll see. Or some more variables in the next iteration of this, but we'll look. So the minimum hours a person can work is 0. The maximum hours they can work is 84, which I got from 12 hours a day at 7 days a week, 84. The minimum hourly rate for somebody is 0. Maybe they're a volunteer, whatever. The maximum hourly rate is $99.99. And again, the values that I used in here, maybe this reads a little better if I go and put in another 0 here and here and here. Can even put one there. All right, so the minimum hourly rate is 0. The maximum hourly rate is $99.99. Again, these were arbitrarily set by me. The most hours you can work with getting no overtime, so just straight time, hours work times hourly rate is 40. And the overtime rate is time and a half, which is 1.5. All right? So I attempt to clear the cache here, and again, I've had problems with this. Then, for all of these, I wrote separate routines. I'm going to combine these into one routine in the next iteration of the program. I'm going to combine these into one in the next iteration of the program because they're basically doing the same thing. They're both checking, in this case, the first name, in this case, the last name. And it's basically saying as long as it's blank, ask the user again to enter their first name or their last name. So when we look at the actual, so inputting the first name, there's where we're doing the input. We've got a try in here. If it's empty, we raise a value error where, as it says, with the value error, we just say invalid input for first name, please re-enter. And actually, I don't even need that. All right, just please re-enter. Whoops, I do need that though. And then we're returning the empty string. We're doing the same thing for the last name. Okay. Then we've got similar things for the hours worked and hourly rate. Now I had all sorts of issues, so I'm making sure that this is 0.0. So I'm floating it. I'm casting it to a float. And I'm doing it here where I'm checking it as well. And I do it where I return the value. but the input hours worked and the input hourly rate are virtually the same, except one is checking for an hours worked between 0 and 84, and the other one is checking for an hourly rate between 0 and 99.99. All right, so hours worked, again, as it says, there's 4 possible error conditions. No input, non-numeric input, out of range input on the low side, out of range input on the high side. I broke this up like this because I had problems doing it the other way. So I said if there is no input, just print no input for hours worked. Please try again, and again, I don't need that there. And we return float 0, 0. Otherwise, if it's non-numeric, or if it's less than the minimum hours, or it's greater than the maximum hours, again, raise a value error. If we raise that value error, all right, we put in there invalid input for hours worked, please re-enter, and we return 0. We do the same thing for hourly rate, except we're checking the minimum hourly rate and the maximum hourly rate. If it's empty, no input for hourly rate, please try again. All right. And if you get a value error, meaning that either you put something non-numeric in, or you put something out of range, again, less than the minimum of 0 or greater than the maximum of 99.99. So by the time we get to where we are actually checking in here for our gross pay, as it says, we now have a valid hours worked and hourly rate. So call calculate gross pay to calculate the gross pay. Do take overtime and non-overtime into account when doing this calculation. All right, so if we go down to here, we don't have to do any error checking in this routine, calculating the gross pay. All right, there's no error checking in here because we know this value is valid. It's got to be between 0 and 84. We know this is valid. It has to be between 0 and 99.99. So this is just our temporary gross, all right, that we're going to return and pluck into our gross pay up above. So if this is the case, pay straight time, no overtime. So no OT worked. So it's just hours worked times hourly rate. Otherwise, they did get some overtime. So that's their straight time. This is the number of overtime hours they worked. We multiply that by the rate and then times 1.5. That's their overtime pay. So we're either going to return this or we're going to return this as gross. All right. Then we come up and we print the information about that employee. Their first name, their last name, their hours worked, their hourly rate, and their gross pay. So there it is. And again, we can pretty this up a little bit. We can do something like this. Name. And then first name, space, last name. How's that? And we're going to, like I said, we're going to pretty this up a little bit. So another print. Hours. All right. And we'll have that. We'll put that on a line by itself. We don't have to do it like this. We do it any way we want, of course. All right. In fact, let's just do this. We got name. And then let's do a couple T like that. And then let's try here hours worked. And we'll put in that. And then we're going to put in the hourly rate. And this will be HR, but we want to put it in like this. HR. All right, and then finally we want to print again for the gross pay. Okay, that should pretty it up a little bit. Okay, I might have to line it up a little better than it is right now, but it's no biggie one way or the other. All right. Finally, when they're finished, we want to give them the opportunity, if desired, to run the program again. So this is going to return either true or false. If it returns false, we say program ending normally, goodbye. We wait 3 seconds, we clear the screen, and we exit. Otherwise, we run the program again. And that routine is right here. So we ask the user, run program again, enter a Y or N, please. But they might not enter a Y or an N, they might enter something else. Okay? If they entered nothing, we wait 3 seconds and we just clear the screen and we run the program again anyway. Otherwise, we assume they entered Y or N, or yes, or no, etc. So we uppercase whatever they inputted. We grab just the first character of what they inputted. If it's not a Y, they don't want to run the program again, so we return false. If it is a Y, we wait 3 seconds, clear the screen, and we return true. And this is call main at program start. All right, hit enter once. There we go. So file, save all, and I'm going to run the program again. So just so you can see it. So enter first name. If I put nothing in here, gotta come down to here. Invalid input for first name, please re-enter. I could keep doing that, but I'm going to just put in Jeff. Enter last name. Again, if I hit enter, that's all it's checking for is blank. So Scott. Now here there are 4 possible wrong things to put in. Nothing, non-numeric, less than 0, or greater than 84. So let's try nothing. No input for hours worked. Please try again. Okay. Non-numeric. Invalid input. Out of range. Out of range the other way. Okay, now let's put in something that's in range. And then we'll go through the same song and dance for the hourly rate. Nothing. Non-numeric. Out of range. Out of range. And finally, we'll put in something that's in range. And then we get name, hours worked, hourly rate, gross pay. And I've got one too many tabs in there, and that's fine. Doesn't look great, it doesn't look terrible. Let's put a tab here and a tab here and a tab there and see if we can line that up. All right, so I don't want to run the program again. Program ending normally, goodbye, should clear, boom. Oops, just about back here, there we go. So let's run it one more time with valid data because I've already run it with invalid. See if our stuff lines up nicely. And we can call it we can put this one to bed. Jeff Scott 60 25. And there you go. All right. If I do want to run the program again, 1, 2, 3, boom. And I'm doing it all over again. So Mary Smith, 80, 30. There you go. No, I don't want to run it again. Program ending normally. 1, 2, 3, boom. All right, so there's that. So I've now given you 3 working iterations that have gotten progressively more difficult. All right, I'm going to take this one I've got now, which is my Payroll 3, and I'm going to make another one right now. So I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it. And it is going to become program 4. Rename. It's going to become Payroll04.py. All right, and my goal here is to do a few things. So what is different between here and the last one? Well, I am going to have in here, I'm going to add a couple global variables. All right, and what we'll have in here is highest paid employee, lowest paid employee, average paid employee. Let's put in those 3. So global variables. I'm going to have total employees, and that'll be equal to 0. I will have highest gross pay, and that'll be equal to, let's make it -1, and we'll have lowest gross pay, and that'll be equal to, we'll put in there, 1 million. That way we can be sure even if we have a gross pay of 0, it'll become the new high. Even if we have a gross pay of 0, it'll become the new low. All right, so we've got these. Now, I could just put them in main too. I could do the same thing. You know, we could do that, and I could not have them be global. All right. So in other words, when I'm doing this, when I get down to gross pay here, calculate this, then I just have to pass those in. Let's see if we can do that and not have any global variables. Okay, so I'm going to take these 3. And get rid of them. And then I'm going to put them in up here. Now, when I'm calling main, it's going to be resetting these all the time. I'm going to go back and make them. I think it'll be cleaner if I make them global. Okay. All right. So when I get into this thing for gross pay, where I'm figuring out the gross pay, right here, first thing I can do is I'm going to increment my total employees counter. So total employees plus equal 1. Okay? And I put in here, what did we put in here? We put in here the highest and the lowest, and let's also have average gross pay, and we'll make that equal to 0.00. This, the highest gross pay, will become -1.00, and the total employees is just going to stay 0. That is a whole number. All right. So we're coming down into our calculating the gross pay. We've now added another employee. Okay? Before we return the gross here, we have to check it. So if gross is greater than the highest gross pay, then we've got a new high. So if that's the case, we have a new highest gross pay. So highest gross pay equals gross. We have to do the same thing for the low. So check for new highest gross pay. When we get done, we have to check for a new lowest gross pay. So if it's less, we have a new lowest gross pay. Let's just redo it here. All right. Now, one thing we're also going to need is a total gross pay. If you say, I don't understand why, if you watch for just a second, I think you'll understand why. So, highest gross pay, lowest gross pay, average gross pay, total gross pay, and that'll also be equal to, at the start, 0.00. All right? So, when we get to the gross pay, this is where we've added things, okay? The first thing we added in here was we incremented the total number of employees we have. Then, as we did before, if they don't have overtime, that's their gross. Otherwise, that's their gross. Well, we have to check, is that gross? Check if current gross is new highest gross pay. So if the current gross is greater than the highest, we've got a new highest. Then we have to check for if it's lower than the lowest. We have a new low. Then we have to add the current gross. Let's make this gross pay. All right, we have to add the current gross pay to our total gross pay accumulator. All right, so total gross pay plus equals gross. All right, that's all we have to do there. When we're all done and finished, we want to do our final totals. So I'm going to grab this and copy it, and you're going to see why, hopefully in just a second. All right, so we said run the program again. If you don't want to run it again, we're returning false. When we return false, way the hay up here. All right, we're doing all this stuff. All right, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to basically print out final totals and quit program. All right, so let me do that. Print out final totals and quit program. Now, all right, I don't need this def in here anymore. That's fine. So I don't want to print this. I'm going to print out here lowest gross pay. Okay. And let me get rid of these. Let me put in this. And this is going to be the lowest gross pay. All right, let me copy that. Then we will need the highest. Good gravy, Jeffrey. Gross pay, so this will be highest. Then we can have the total gross pay. And finally, we will need the average gross pay. Now, there's something we'll have to do with that first, but we'll fix that in a second. We don't have an average gross pay right now. All right, so I'm going to come in here and say average gross pay is equal to the total gross pay divided by our total employees. Okay. Well, let's see if I made it better, worse, whatever. Save all. Now I'm not going to run this again and check out all of my error conditions. You've seen that already. So I'm just going to put in here stuff that works. All right. Unexpected indent in line 66. Okay, just move these over. So I want to call that print out final totals. And then let's do this. We'll just put in here paren, and then we'll call quit program. I'm going to grab all of this. So we're going to print out the final totals, and then we're going to call quit program. All right, so I'll have to change the name down at the very bottom. This is print out final totals. So now that should have fixed that error. And this will be def quit program. And that's everything that's in there. Now I don't need this. Okay, and I need to bring all these over one. All right, now let's see if I've got it working. I'm up to 215 lines just about. All right, file, save all, run program. Enter first name. Trying to make this simple. Employee 1. All right, they worked 80 hours and they make $50 an hour. Good gravy. I'm starting to really like this language. Sounds weird, but I am. Okay, since I made these variables global, when I bring them in, I've got to bring them in with global. So global, lowest gross pay, highest gross pay, total employees, and average gross pay. So that'll fix that. But I also need those lines inside of our gross pay function. There we go. All right, so file, save all. Let's clear this. And I want to prove to you that it works. So I'll even check the error conditions. Enter first name, you keep it empty. Jeff, keep it empty. Scott, keep it empty. No input for hours worked. Do something out of range. Do something out of range. All right. And let's say 50. So that's the hours worked. And for hourly rate, let's do the same thing. Invalid hour, no input. Invalid. Invalid. So 20. All right, it doesn't like my call to main. 53 and 169. It's not associated with a value. Total gross pay. I didn't add total gross pay in here. Now, you can put all these on one line. You could put each one on its own line. When you're putting in the global thing like that, it doesn't really matter. All right. File. Save all. Let's run it and let's put in about 5 employees here. All right. So, employee lowest. We're going to say they worked 1 hour and they make $1 an hour. So they made $1. So that'll be the lowest. Okay. All right. Run program again. Yes. This will be employee 2, and they worked 40 hours, and they make $10 an hour, so they made $400. Okay? Yes. So let's do employee 3. They worked 50 hours, and they make $10 an hour. You can see that it did come up with their gross pay. We'll run it one more time. And we'll say employee highest. And we'll say they worked 80 hours and they make $80 an hour. All right. We want to run it again? No. So the lowest gross pay was $1. There's the highest. Well, I got to let it go a little longer, but hopefully you saw all that. All right. Everything now, everything appears to be working. Wow. So where we are coming in here and where we quit the program. I'm going to change that to 6. Okay. And run it one more time. So this will be low. First, oops, I don't know what happened there. This will be low est. All right, 1, 1. They made $1, so we have $1 so far. That's the lowest employee. Run it again. Yes. This will be highest. We'll say 60 and 60. So 4,200. Now it's 4,201 is the total with our 2 employees. Let's add 2 more. Right now we're at 4,201. Call this middle 1 and 20 and 20, 400. So that should be, I think, 4601, something like that. And we'll run it one more time. And we'll call this middle 2, 50, and 10. Good. So that all works. So I should be somewhere around 5151 or something like that. So there it is. There's my highest, there's my lowest, there's my average. The average I could move over 1. Okay, so let's do that, and then we'll put this one to rest. So there's that. There's the first one. File, save all. All right, and actually that should be number 3, not number 4. No, let's leave it like this. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to come in here and combine. I'm going to call this one now input first or last name. It'll have a prompt and it'll have a number. All right. So we're going to also come in here and add this. We're going to add the name, and we're going to set it equal to nothing. And we're going to have min, which we're going to set equal to 0.0, and max, which we are going to set equal to 0.0. All right. Now, we've got this user input. That's all fine. If number equal 1, then we're going to be calling this for the first name. Okay, so if that's the case, the name is going to be equal to first. All right, and we don't even need a min and a max in here. We're not checking that yet. All right, so the name is going to be equal to that. Elif number equal 2, then it'll be last name. All right, so it'll be first name or last name. So if user input is empty, do this, else do this. Invalid input for this will be the name, and we'll return that. All right, so we've got our try. Okay. All right, so now the name is equal to last. Now I can totally now get rid of this input last name. We don't need that anymore. All right, we're going to go over all of this when we get done in just a minute. No, that's it. it was right. So please enter the first name. And this is last name, so that'll be a 2. And this, we can copy. That'll be a 1. And this will say first. All right. Let's just check with what we've done so far and see if I broke anything. Please enter first name. Nothing in there. Oops. Nothing in there. Invalid input for first name. Please re-enter. Jeff. Input last name. Invalid input for last name. Please re-enter. Scott. Looks like I need one more here. I need one more tab or one less here. It doesn't matter. This should all still work. Okay. All right. That's all fine. So this first name, I need one less tab there. All right. Now let's do the same thing with this other one. We're going to change this to input hours worked or hourly rate. All right, user input is fine. So again, this will be a prompt followed by a number. The type is going to be equal to number. No, I'm sorry. It's going to be equal to nothing. Now we will need a min, which will be equal to 0.0, and we'll need a max, which will be equal to 0.0. If number equal 1, we are working then with hours worked. So we need the type is going to be equal to hours worked. The min is going to be equal to min hours. The max is going to be equal to max hours. Okay. Elif number equal 2. Then we know it's hourly rate. So I'm going to copy all this stuff. So this will become hourly rate. This will be min hourly rate. This will be max hourly rate. Good. Do our try. There's 4 possibilities. Could be out of range, less than min, or greater than max. All right, user input. So this will be no input for the type. This will be min. This will be max. This will be invalid input for the type. And that'll be fine. Now I will not need this anymore. So you can see by combining this how many lines I've saved. I'm down from about 220. Looks like I'm down maybe 20 lines. Now I have to fix these because these calls were wrong now. See that? Input hours worked or hourly rate. Let's put all this on a new line so it's easier to see. Doesn't like that. So this again will be hourly hours worked or hourly rate. Again, I'm going to try to hit enter there. Well, let's see if we broke it or if it works. Syntax error. Single is not allowed. Line 116. Not a problem. Try it again. All right. Please enter first name. Again. Hi. Guy. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Worked hour rate. HW less than max non-OT for function and float. 203 is main, so that's not an error. 55 is what I'm calling calculate gross pay with hours worked and hourly rate. So it must not like something that is in my program for hours worked and hourly rate. Type is hourly rate. Type is hours worked. Now I can change this. Probably would read better as hours worked, and this would work better as hourly rate. All right. Type, return float 00. Left math user input. X float user input. For the type, please. That actually looks correct, rather. So this is max, the type hourly rate. That all looks okay. Right, so let's I don't think this would screw it up if it was on multiple lines, but just in case, let's put it in like that. And we'll do the other one as well. All right, and I have no idea if that fixed it, if it did nothing. So let's look. Start file 42 hours worked equals input. Right, work between this. Type error. Oh, I didn't. Jeffrey. Okay, that's me. All right, so please enter first name, first or last, with a 1 and a 2, but I didn't put the 1 and the 2 in here. So that's got to be here a 1, and here it's got to be a 2. Let's see if we can put this on multiple lines, just because it reads so much better. All right, File, Save All, clear this, run the program. Hi, Guy. Still give me that error on 137, but the hours worked, min hours, max hours. Let's go look at that. Well, there's min and there's max. Min hours, max hours, min. Huh. That shouldn't be any kind of a problem. Let's make sure these are floated. There's no reason on earth I should have to do that. That looks correct. Is there something wrong with main in here? No, there shouldn't be. Let's do this. Let's close this. Okay. Get rid of this. Yeah. Clear. Try to run it again, see if it's still screwed up or not. All right. Yeah. All right. 55 and 137. Again, let's just move this back just to be sure. And I'll move the other one back too, just to be sure. All right. File, save all. Looks good. That's 8,000. So it should be 25 is the lowest, 8,000, 825. That's all working. Everything's working. Hot doggy. All right. So what I've done in here is, just so you know, as I'm already at, almost an hour or so, what I've done in here is I've created 4 different derivations, variations, whatever you want to call it, of a payroll program. In the first example, I hard-coded everything. Very, very simplistic. So every time you run it, it's going to look exactly the same. All right, didn't say much, didn't do much. Then I took the exact same program, but I came in and inputted the values. So every time we run it, we could put in different values. All right. Then we came in the third iteration, we added some constants. The minimum hours and maximum hours someone can work, their minimum pay rate and maximum pay rate. And we even put in overtime. All right, plus we came in here and we wrote individual routines for inputting the first name, which didn't allow blanks, inputting the last name, which didn't allow blanks, inputting the hours worked, which didn't allow blanks, non-numerics, less than our minimum or greater than our maximum. Then we did the same thing with hourly rate. Can't be blank, can't be non-numeric, can't be less than the minimum or greater than the maximum. Once we got all that stuff and we were sure we had a valid hourly rate and a valid hours worked, All right, we know this, so we calculated the gross pay. When we calculated the gross pay, all right, we have a local variable called gross. If the person had no overtime, it was just hours worked times hourly rate. If they did have overtime, we had to account for that. And then we returned their gross. After their gross, we printed out their information, so their name, the number of hours they worked, their hourly rate, and their gross pay. Finally, we allowed the user the opportunity to run the program again if she or he wanted to do that. All right, and going back into my main function then, if we did not want to run it again, we just said program ending normally. We waited 3 seconds, cleared the screen, and exited. Otherwise, we ran the program again by calling main again. All right, finally, we just went in and just finished number 4 here. All right, and with number 4, what did we add? Well, we added some global variables right here. We added the total number of employees, so we kept track of how many employees we had. We set that originally to 0. The highest gross pay, which we set to -1, so every time we put in a gross pay, with the first one we put in, even if it's 0 and 0, 0 and 0 is going to be higher than -1, so it'll become the new high. And 0, 0 is going to be lower than 1,000,000, so it'll become the new low. We also add that current gross pay or gross pay to our total gross pay. And eventually we're going to have, so in other words, this is going to be what? The total number of employees. This will be highest. That's great. This will be the highest employee gross amount. This will be the lowest employee gross amount. This will be the average employee gross amount. And this will be the total all employees gross amounts. Okay, so we added those. Then we also came in and we combined what we had written as 2 different routines for inputting first name and inputting last name into a new one called input first or last name. To do that, we passed the message, and a number 1 would be meaning we were working with the first name, and a number 2 if we were working with the last name. So the name is going to be either first or last. All right, there's our prompt. If it was a 1, the name is first, otherwise the name is last. The only thing we check for in here is there was no first name or last name input. All right. If that was the case, if it was empty, so if the user input was empty, we can put in here, and I didn't, invalid input for the name. How about this? No input for the name. Please re-enter. That's invalid. Let's change it from invalid to invalid or out of range. In fact, what do we have in here? This is for the name, so we don't even need that. We can change that to no input for first name or no input for last name. All right, we did the same thing where we combined our hours worked, input hours worked, and our input hourly rate into one, where we again passed the prompt in a number. Now we've got the type, which is either going to be hours worked or hourly rate, and the minimum, which is either going to be min hours or min rate, and the maximum or max, which is going to be either max hours or max rate. All right. So here there was no input for this. This was invalid input. So this can be invalid or out of range input. When we get, we ask the user if they want to run the program again. If they do, we call main. If they don't, we print out the final totals, which is going to print out the highest employee gross, the lowest employee gross, the total employee gross, the average employee gross, those four things. Then it'll call quit program. All right. And in here, we have to pass all those in as global, so we're using the right one. We figure out the average here. So right here, we're going to come in and calculate the average gross pay. All right, then we print the lowest, the highest, the total, and the average. Maybe I should have average and flip these. Okay, when we quit the program, boom. Now that's everything, and that's about 200 lines. So let's file, save all. Let's run this. Now notice if there's nothing in here, it says no input for first name. Why did it do that twice? I don't know. I must have it in there twice. I don't know, but let's see it. Yeah, it is in there twice. I'll get rid of it in a second. All right, so Jeff. Now it's giving me twice for last. Hours worked. Again, if it's nothing, no input for hours worked. If it's out of range, invalid or out of range. Same thing in here, no input for hourly rate, invalid or out of range. Okay, no, everything is 550 because I only did one. And it ends. All right, so everything now appears to be working except for our name. It's putting that in there twice. So I know why, I believe. Let's look. Value error, we want that there. If it's empty, we want nothing. We want that here. And we don't want to, we're not even going to raise this. We're just going to return nothing. So if we run this and put nothing in here, no input for first name, please re-enter. It's only printing once. No input for last name. It's only printing once. Again, let's put in here 50, 50. And we'll run it again. And we'll put in John Jones. And we'll put in 50 and 40. And no. So there's the highest, there's the lowest, there's the average, there's the total. Program ending. Everything's cool. All right, so I'm done. Now, what I plan on doing next is I'm going to have a lecture, which is going to be a straight lecture. All right, I'm already at 1 hour and 5 minutes, so let me finish this up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into and into here and take a look at, let's see. I want to talk about Python lists next, which is their equivalent of arrays. Then we're going to talk about dictionaries. Then we're going to talk about tuples. And finally, we're going to talk about sets. All right. And I'm going to do these. I'm going to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, or attempt to, this payroll program that we've been working on, and use list methods, and then use dictionary methods, and then use tuple methods, and then use set methods. That's going to be what I am going to attempt to do in here. Okay, I'll be back with that in a little bit.